This is a sport where only the very best survive. Rally Australia is arguably the most difficult on the world circuit, with the famous ball-bearing Western Australian gravel and the heart-stopping narrowness of the tree-lined forest tracks of the state's southwest. This year, another dimension: the wettest conditions since the event was first staged in 1988. Conditions that would throw day 3 into chaos, with stages abandoned or shortened. By the end of the grueling event, only about half the record field of 103 would have survived. The champions knew what they were in for. Last year's Rally Australia winner Kenneth Eriksson of Sweden preparing for the worst.
No, it will be very difficult if it's raining because it's so slippery. You have this red or dark clay, whatever it is, and it's so slippery. I think it's nearly almost impossible in some corner to control the car. So I think a little rain wouldn't mind, but if it was raining as it did on Tuesday, it will be really very, very difficult for us all, and also for the organizer, as well for the spectators to be out there.
Mitsubishi Lancer driver Tommy Mäkinen came to Rally Australia knowing he could seal this year's World Championship with a win. He came 4th in last year's Rally Australia, describing it as a struggle. This year, he promised it would be different.
This year is much easier for us because last year we were like a first time here. We made all the notes and we did all the stages only 3 times, and this year we used same stages and 3 more times all the stages. Makes it much easier, and I mean it's more experience, and it makes me very, very confident.
Spain's Carlos Sainz was the only driver with even a slim hope of snatching the world title from Mäkinen. Rally Australia hasn't been kind to the one they call El Matador, with 3 retirements from 5 starts. But a switch to Ford this year gave him hope of keeping his world title hopes alive.
Rallies, you never know. I know in my experience says that until the rally is not finished, anything can happen, and we will try until we have a small chance.
Another of the favourites was 1994 winner Colin McRae of Britain in his Subaru Impreza. The current World Rally champion was full of praise for the Australian Rally, particularly the special stages on Perth's Swan River foreshore at Langley Park.
Langley Park is very good because it's very well organised. The stage is very good, it's very safe. A lot of people try to do these sort of things and they're a bit too Mickey Mouse, but Langley Park is almost like a proper race circuit on the night. So that's very good.
Another of the Ford Escort drivers, Bruno Thierry, was lining up for his 2nd Rally Australia after a 6th outright on debut last year. He hoped to put that experience to good use in 1996.
I think it was a good opportunity to drive last year, but this year for the 2nd time is still difficult. There's so many different surfaces, this ball bearing and this weather condition are so difficult condition on the last recce day, and I think it will be difficult, for example, the first leg, yes.
A newcomer to Rally Australia was Italy's Piero Liatti, the 3rd of the Subaru team behind McRae and Eriksson. Liatti won the 1991 European Rally Championship and was teamed with Fabrizia Pons, Italy's first lady of rallying. They didn't know what to expect, but they did know it would be vastly different from conditions in Italy.
Yes, because the Italian Championship is completely different, because the only tarmac and completely different.
Among the top Australians in this year's rally, quietly spoken South Australian Ed Ordinsky, the winner of Group N in 6 of 7 Rally Australias he's contested. In earlier rallies this year, Ordinsky stepped up to Group A, but decided to return to Group N for Rally Australia. He knew the transition would be tough, but felt he could cope.
I hope not too much adaptation's required, because really the Group N cars drive like a road car. So although I've been using a sequential 6-speed gearbox and changing gears without the clutch and so on, driving around on the road, of course, you're driving in the conventional manner. So I think it'll be okay. When I got back into the Group N car yesterday, it felt like putting on an old set of clothes. So I hope I'll be fine.
For Canberra's Neil Bates, Rally Australia held a special significance. Trailing New Zealand's Possum Bourne in this year's Australian Rally Championship, he knew nothing but the best would do if his Toyota Celica was to catch the Kiwis' Impreza.
This event is very crucial to the Australian Championship, so if Possum was say to run away with this event, we'd have a very tough time beating him in the Australian Championship. But we'll be aiming to try and be in front of Possum at the end.
Rally Australia is the 7th leg of the 9-leg World Championship circuit. When we return, we'll look at the highlights of the earlier rallies that set the scene for our own great event. 1996 World Rally Championship. Round 1, day 1, and a drive through the frozen forests of Scandinavia. Most drivers were with new manufacturers, and it was taking time to learn the cars and the conditions. Carlos Sainz had taken up with the Ford Repsol team in an Escort, and it became apparent early that his off-season developmental work had paid off. But it was the Finn, Tommy Mäkinen, who would set the pace in the trying conditions.
Biggest improve has happened with the tires. I think it works very well, and we have a full confidence.
In a sign of what was to come, tyre problems would play a crucial role in the rally's outcome. And for many of the drivers, there were moments they'd rather forget. By leg 3, rally leader Tommy Mäkinen extended his lead until his Lancer was forced to carve a trail through fresh snow. Sainz struck back, cutting Mäkinen's lead to just 12 seconds before Tommy shored up the rally in the closing stages. World champion Colin McRae managed to snatch 3rd place on the final day, but it was to be Tommy Mäkinen's rally by 23 seconds over Carlos Sainz and McRae.
Tommy, many, many congratulations. An absolutely superb drive.
Thank you, thank you. Feel is very, very great. I'm very happy.
From one extreme to the other, and after the snow of Sweden, the contrast couldn't have been greater. Round 2, Kenya, the Safari Rally. The traditional welcome would hide what was to come, a race of extreme heat, torrential rains, and flash floods. When the 5th stage resembled a river, organisers cancelled the stage, giving the teams valuable repair time. It was Kenneth Eriksson in his Subaru who set the early pace, but eventually surrendered his lead to Mäkinen at the 7th stage. It was a lead Mäkinen would take across the finish line.
Thanks for you.
Colin McRae finished out of the top placings after suspension problems, and while Eriksson pushed his Subaru to the limit, he had to settle for 2nd place. So to round 3, and for the first time, Rally Indonesia counted toward the World Championship. It was to be a tough rally and would take a heavy toll. Mäkinen took a 17-point championship lead into the event, but lost out to the conditions after a heavy clash with a bridge. Carlos Sainz, in his first Indonesian rally, chose the safe driving option early, a decision that would pay off later. And while Sainz waited for the lead cars to make mistakes, Rally Indonesia leader Colin McRae did not disappoint. After leading the first 2 legs, McRae rolled his Subaru in what would become a familiar sight during this year's World Rally Championships. But McRae wasn't the only driver to misjudge the slippery conditions. Then controversy. With 7 out of the 10 leading cars retired and a win for Carlos Sainz a mere formality, rally officials expelled Sainz for breaching servicing regulations.
We have received a letter from the clerk of the course. She's trying to say that we've infringed Article 4.2, 4.3 and 4.4, and that we have been excluded from the rally from immediate effect. We are not accepting this. We categorically deny it. We know the World Rally Championship regulations inside out, and we did not. They're accusing us of putting fuel in the car, and we did definitely not put fuel in the car.
After much discussion and a $25,000 fine, Sainz was allowed to continue the rally and record his first win of the season, and the Ford Repsol team's first win since 1994. The win taking Sainz to within 5 points of Mäkinen's championship lead. The 4th round Acropolis rally would see a return to form for Scottish world champion Colin McRae. It was a start-to-finish victory, but it was not without incident. During the 6th stage, McRae spun out, almost ending his rally. Not known for his conservative driving, even after the events of Indonesia, McRae almost cleaned up his second Impreza in as many rallies. But it was a broken prop shaft centre bearing late in the rally that almost cost him dearly. It's normally a 15-minute repair job, but miraculously, McRae's team did it in 9. That saving saved the rally for 555 team and gave McRae his first victory of the year.
It's a tough rally for you.
Yeah, very hard. Not knowing how quick to go. You can't drive 100% here because it's so rough. And it was getting a bit dodgy earlier on today, but it's worked out okay.
He wanted to repeat that form in the 5th round, Rally Argentina. He dominated the early stages with a string of fastest times before it all went wrong for the world champion. Colin McRae clipped a bank and rolled in the 6th stage, ending his rally.
David, we've just seen Colin walk in. He's obviously out. Can you now tell us what's happened?
Yeah, I don't know the exact details, but obviously it's an accident. It's just, you know, that speed, you take a few risks, and you know, this time, one too many.
That left the door open for Rally Art's Tommy Mäkinen to take command. He led from stage 5 to the end, despite having to take some detours. Carlos Sainz's car suffered a broken wheel shaft and survived on 3-wheel drive for 5 stages. A swap with an unhappy teammate, Bruno Thierry, and Sainz was back on track. Thierry was left to ponder what might have been. The dry Argentinian track played havoc with all the drivers, except for leading driver Mäkinen, who didn't have to contend with the poor visibility. Mäkinen did have to contend with spectators changing the course, but it wouldn't stop him claiming his 3rd victory of the season and his continued dominance of the Drivers' Championship.
Next event is 1,000 Lakes, and then Australia as well. It should be very good for us, and I can't see any reason why we couldn't have good chance to get a good result.
When Tommy returned to his home soil for the 1,000 Lakes rally, it would be local knowledge that would be the difference. A tragic accident marred the opening stage, but again, Mäkinen would prove his dominance on the World Rally circuit, and Colin McRae would again prove his volatility as a driver. A victory for Mäkinen, and he would take a 33-point championship lead into Rally Australia, and just one more victory away from securing the FIA World Rally Championship for drivers. Friday, the 13th of September, and as the countdown to the start of Rally Australia continued, the drivers took to the sedate transport of Austin Healey's for a parade through the streets of Perth. From the parade, the scene shifted a few blocks to Langley Park, located between the Perth CBD and the Swan River. In the early days, Langley Park was Perth's original airport. For 3 nights during the rally, it would reverberate to the sounds of the fastest rally machines in the world. 3 super stages, bringing a predominantly bush event to the city slickers. The length of the Langley Park super stage is 2.2 kilometres, with drivers starting and finishing on the bitumen of Riverside Drive. In between is a figure-8 twin-track course, consisting of more than 5,000 cubic metres of gravel, clay, sand and lime. The main feature is the crossover point of the track, incorporating a spectacular jump and tunnel. It's the only part of any World Rally Championship event where it's virtual match racing, 2 cars at a time. The record for the Langley Park Superstage is 1:35. With recent rain softening the surface, that record was expected to be unchallenged, but Carlos Sainz had other ideas. The Spaniard's escort stopped the clock at 1:35, equaling the track record and underlining his determination to keep the world title alive.
Acaba buena más a fondo en asfalto, señor, y no cortar 4. Dale, sigue a fondo, sigue. Stop. 35, Miguel.
Starting alongside Sainz was the Subaru Impreza of Swede Kenneth Eriksson. Eriksson's time was 1:36, 1 second slower than Sainz. Next on the start line, the pairing of Tommy Mäkinen and Colin McRae. Lancer versus Impreza, and it was a heart-stopping battle.
20 eri, pidä sisällä 25, hae piru pitkä oikein nopea miinus.
Into 4 right minus, tightens to 2 right plus, into 6 right minus, opens.
Onto the main straight, it's going to be side by side. It's Mackinnon against McRae. McRae's got the legs. Mackinnon coming up to the line. Almost dead heat. You'd have to call it a dead heat.
At the end, Mackinnon and McRae clocking the same time, 1 minute 36. That time was also returned by Italian Piero Liati in his Impreza, a fine effort in his first Rally Australia. Belgium's Bruno Thierry was one of 5 drivers just 1 second behind Sainz, giving Ford confidence their escorts would be very competitive in the rally. Lining up together were Australian rally champion rivals Possum Bourne of New Zealand and Australia's Neil Bates, each striving for the psychological edge.
Watch these two. Let's see what they do.
In the end, it was an honourable draw. Bourne's Impreza and Bates' Celica timed at 1 minute 37, just 2 seconds off the pace. In the battle for Group N, veteran Argentinian Jorge Recalde had entered as a privateer in his Lancer, returning a time of 1 minute 40. Albury's David West, also in a Lancer, was equal to the occasion, also completing the 2.2 kilometres in 1 minute 40 to lift his hopes in Group N. Also in Group N, but also in good form, Newcastle's Michael Guest, only 1 second slower than Recalde and West. Ed Ordinsky was relatively slow at 1 minute 43, keen to get his Lancer out of the city and onto the forest tracks. When the roar of the engines died down, it was time to party at Langley Park, the fans entertained by the star Australian band Hunters and Collectors. The cars would be back at Langley Park for another superstage the following night. Before then, 9 grueling forest stages south of Perth were awaiting the cars. When we return, Langley Park at 5:30 on Saturday morning, September 14, was somewhat quieter than the night before, as the crews made final preparations for their journey to the forests of southwest Western Australia. Their first destination was the Jarradale area, 50 kilometres southeast of Perth, and a new stage this year known as Langford Park. The 3.78 kilometre stage starts in Jarrah Forest, opening onto fast-flowing ball-bearing gravel, tight and twisting near the end. Carlos Sainz picked up from where he'd left off the night before, setting a fastest time of 2 minutes 39 on the stage. Sainz was determined to prolong the battle for the World Championship, extending his lead over Mackinnon to 3 seconds. Mackinnon's Lancer was equal third fastest on Langford, his 2 minutes 42, matched by Kenneth Eriksson in his Subaru.
Piru pitkä vasenveri kiristyy pahasti lopussa.
Even faster than Mackinnon and Eriksson, and a mere 1 second behind Sainz, was Belgium's Bruno Thierry, his escort flying. After Langford Park, the crews headed 50 kilometres further south near the town of Dwellingo, and stage 3, Murray Pines. The stage is 18.5 kilometres through a pine plantation. The surface is mostly clay, and this year was the slipperiest it's ever been. It was also the stage upon which Tommy Mackinnon made his move, setting fastest time of 11 minutes 42. To underline just how bad the conditions were, Mackinnon's time was a full 14 seconds outside the stage record he set last year. It was during this stage that Mackinnon turned a 4-second deficit into a 4-second lead over Carlos Sainz. Caught out by the treacherous road conditions, Sainz had a brief encounter with a television camera, both car and camera coming off second best. Sainz had to be content with 4th fastest on Murray Pines, the honour of 2nd fastest going to 25-year-old Briton Richard Burns, competing in only his 2nd Rally Australia. His description of the stage, exciting. The consistent Bruno Thierry was 3rd fastest on Murray Pines, despite noticing smoke coming from under the bonnet. He finished the stage in 3rd place, just 5 seconds behind Mackinnon, the overall leader. The Australian Rally Championship battle between Possum Bourne and Neil Bates was hotting up. Bourne just 2 seconds faster on the stage. At the end of Murray Pines, both Bourne and Bates were equal 8th overall. Not 1 second between them.
Into medium right close.
Another nail-biter was going on in Group N. Ed Ordinsky and Michael Guest, both recording 12 minutes 30 seconds. Ordinsky described the Murray Pines surface as being like skin on the top of porridge, as he remained 3 seconds behind the Newcastle driver in Group N. Stage 4, Harvey Weir, is a tight, twisty 8-kilometre stage along narrow clay tracks through pine plantations, with some open gravel surfaces. Again, the slippery conditions ruled out any new record, but Mackinnon's Lancer was humming. Tommy recorded 5 minutes 02, 6 seconds slower than Juha Kankkinen's mark in 1995, and he was the first to concede it was tough going.
Second stage in the morning was extremely slippy and very difficult and dangerous stage. It was tough morning, but last stage was very nice.
Part of Mackinnon's success so far could be put down to his decision to switch to Michelin tyres, which had undergone a special cutting process.
This is what Tommy Mackinnon was talking about. The Michelin engineers have done an extra cut in the tyre to allow more grip in the very muddy conditions, and that's offering him a real advantage over his opponents such as Colin McRae and Carlos Sainz.
Speaking of Sainz, he was starting to fall further behind Mackinnon. He lost another 3 seconds on Harvey Weir, leaving him now 7 seconds in arrears of the Finn. Although his World Championship chances were becoming slimmer, Sainz remained in a positive frame of mind.
I would like to be in front of Tommy, but at the moment it seems like it's going very well, and it's really very difficult for us to get in front, but okay, it's still a long day.
A very tough morning so far?
Yeah, the conditions are very difficult, very slippery indeed, and not very good.
Neil Bates matched the times of Kenneth Eriksson and Richard Burns on Harvey Weir, his Celica clocking 5 minutes 08 for equal 5th. Despite the fast time, some mysterious mechanical problems were starting to bedevil the Canberra driver.
I'm not exactly sure what's wrong yet, but under power the car's pulling like it seems to have a reasonable amount of torque steer, which is abnormal, and then they can't find anything wrong with it, which is more of a worry. I'd probably be happier if they could find something, but so they're just going to drop it down, do a wheel alignment, and then we'll go from there and see what we can find.
Does it cost you any time?
I wouldn't say dramatic amounts of time. It's probably cost me a few moments. I'd prefer not to, because it's a bit more difficult to drive than what it should be, but you know, I'd say we're still battling on.
Bourne didn't know at that stage that Bates was in some difficulty, and despite some understeer problems, he was sticking to his game plan of driving a measured rally. Bourne was 9th overall, but more importantly for him, only 2 seconds behind Bates.
Yeah, it's quite hard work because it's slippery on some corners, not bad on others, and it's quite difficult. And I chose the wrong tyres, I think, at the start, and I'm trying I'm trying to ignore the overseas guys and worry about the Australian Championship and driving a little bit quieter than normal, and I'm struggling to find a rhythm.
The tyres have been critical though this morning.
I would think so, yeah. I'm sure I chose the wrong one. We'll see now, but we'll wait and see.
Ordinsky and Guest were continuing their Group N duel. Guest with his bonnet just in front after the latest stage.
Yeah, it's only 3 seconds, but we're both a long way in front of the overseas visitors. I don't know whether they're just playing a waiting game or what, because those drivers are capable of going faster than they are at the moment.
Any problems at all this morning?
I overshot one junction, but in the circumstances, it's pretty minor.
But there was some good news for the South Australian. One of his main rivals in Group N, Argentinian Jorge Recalde, had called it a day. Engine trouble forcing his Mitsubishi Lancer out of Rally Australia after Harvey Weir. 3 stages down for the day. 6 more in the bush to go before another Langley Park superstage. And if the drivers thought the going would become easier, they would be in for a rude awakening. Further south and to the east of the town of Harvey are the stages Stirling West and Stirling East. Stirling West is a fast-flowing stage through pine plantations. It's almost 16 kilometres of clay and ball-bearing gravel. Stirling East has similar characteristics to Stirling West, but is much longer, almost 35.5 kilometres. Carlos Sainz chose these stages to try to prune Tommy Mackinnon's lead. His Ford Escort was the only one to break 10 minutes on Stirling West, 3 seconds faster than second-place Mackinnon, while the pair shared equal second time along Stirling East, 2 seconds behind Kenneth Ericsson's Impreza. It was Ericsson's first stage win of this year's Rally Australia, a shot in the arm for the man who took all before him in last year's rally.
Yeah, it went very well, but I had a slight misfire. I had a big water splash in it, so I needed the car stop for me after 100 meters because I got water into the engine. Was very lucky to come out of it. The driving was very good, so it's okay.
A contented Ericsson, but not so many of the other drivers. Even the ice-cool Mackinnon was a little testy.
Difficult long stage and some very slippy places. No mistakes so far.
You continue to take a lot of time off Colin. You took 19 seconds off him in there.
It's okay, it's good. It's very good. Difficult long stage.
3, 2, 1, go. It's a long race, 270.
The British resolve was also being tested by the unforgiving, slippery forest tracks of WA's southwest. Richard Burns was lying 4th overall, only 25 seconds off the lead. But as if the road conditions weren't bad enough, there were also technical problems inside his Lancer.
To medium left, long, 40. Flat right, to flat right to crest, 60 tons slow, medium right.
It was fine apart from the intercom failed a little bit into the stage and we had to change around and we lost like 5 kilometres or something without any notes. And it's very annoying.
Six left minus.
14 seconds further away in 5th place was Colin McRae. His beef was with the inconsistent surface.
There were lots of muddy places and then dry for a while, and the tyres start moving around. It's quite difficult.
The tyres seem to be really critical today.
Yeah, but it's because the conditions are changing so much. We've got a narrow tyre on now to try and get grip in the mud, but as soon as you come on the dry section it starts to move too much, so it's a compromise all the time.
The Stirling stages were also taking their toll on an agitated Belgian, Bruno Thierry, his Escort misfiring.
Essayez de me mettre en marche. Ouais. Not possible to start the engine anymore. I don't know what is it. I don't know. Je vais voir les temps.
If the going was tough for those with some experience of Western Australian conditions, spare a thought for Piero Liati and co-driver Fabrizio Pons in their debut Down Under event. They were in 8th place overall through the Stirling stages, but an encounter with some Australian wildlife did nothing to help their chances.
We hit and we killed a kangaroo.
Did it cost you much time?
Yes, a lot, because we were the accelerator just straight was just completely full, and so we lost more than 1 minute.
It was not only the overseas drivers running into problems. The leading Australians will not have fond memories of this part of Rally Australia. Among them, Michael Guest, who came to grief on Stirling East.
Fast way left of the junction, 200. Easy right, long, close.
Michael, what happened?
Rolled. It's a pretty easy way to put it. Just a tightening downhill left-hand corner, and in reconnaissance there was a big puddle of water there, and it's sort of been thrown out now, and it's really slippery, and we just fell over the edge of the road and rolled the car, and had to get out and roll it back over and change a flat tyre then and got going. So we lost about 6.5 minutes in our Group N lead, so not a happy boy at the moment.
Must be dreadfully disappointing having gotten in front of Ed Ordinsky and then to lose it all.
Yeah, and because we're taking no risks either, and that's what sort of annoys me a bit. We just sort of a good even pace, and the pace that we intended to drive the whole rally, and just one corner, and a guy a couple of cars behind us went off on the same corner, but no excuse. Professional driver, you don't do things like this, but anyway, long way to go, and we'll see what we can do for the rest of the rally.
Guest's misfortune should have handed the Group N lead to Ed Ordinsky. It was not to be. Stirling East also proving to be the undoing of the South Australian.
I hit a ditch and pulled the tyre off the rim.
So how much time has it cost you?
Probably 3.5 minutes, I reckon. You know, by the time we found a safe spot to change, it was the biggest time delay, because the roads are very narrow, so, you know, neither of us want to sit out there in the road with possum coming.
It was a mortal blow for Ordinsky. He would not be making it 7 out of 8 Rally Australia Group N titles. That class was now developing into a battle between the Mitsubishi Lancers of Germany's Uwe Nettel and Gustavo Treyes of Uruguay. In the battle for Australian Rally Championship points, it was all slipping away for Neil Bates, now 1.25 minutes behind Possum Bourne.
On the steering arm, and they fixed that, and the wheel arm's not right, and also the windscreen washer's not working. So I go through puddles and just ends up brown when you're driving along looking for the road. So we've got to fix them, without a doubt.
So how much time has it cost you?
Well, we spun in the last stage, and you'll see by the inboard it took like 30 or 40 seconds to turn around. So things aren't going real well, but we're still going along.
The crews welcomed the next service point, Collie. Mäkinen was 4 seconds ahead of Sainz, with a further 15 seconds back to Ericsson. Sainz had done all he could to regain the overall lead, but Mäkinen was simply driving too well.
I said before the rally I will try all that I can, and I'm trying, but it seems that at the moment Tommy is driving like the rest of the year very well, and Mitsubishi is going well. I'm quite happy the car it's working okay. I think the stages are in a very difficult conditions with quite a lot of mud, and I think the car is going well, but not so easy.
There's not a lot of time between you though.
It's only 4 seconds at the moment, but now we are going to the long stage. We will see what's happening.
The Collie service park was also a good time to catch up with Seat driver Erwin Weber of Germany, currently in the lead among the Formula 2 vehicles.
This is my first time that I come here to Australia to do this rally, and I'm enjoying quite a lot. You know, I think these stages are really good stages for my car, for my Seat, and I'm really feeling very comfortable inside the car. and let's see if I can go with this rhythm, because okay, the rally is very long, still many stages, a lot of stages, but I think I'm driving with confidence, and that's very important for me.
Ahead of the crews, the longest stage of Rally Australia, Wellington Dam. We'll take a drive with the stars along that route in just a moment. Wellington Dam saw Tommy Mäkinen at his very best, setting a fastest time of 28 minutes and 9 seconds. Although developing a shock absorber problem, Mäkinen was 4 seconds faster than Kenneth Eriksson.
30, höger 1, dubbelvarning, slippery. 50, vänster 4 minus. 20, lite krön, break 10.
Third fastest on Wellington Dam was Carlos Sainz, who now found himself a significant 15 seconds behind Mäkinen. For Neil Bates, things were going from bad to worse. Trailing Possum Bourne by 1:14 in the Australian Rally Championship before the start of Wellington Dam, Bates found himself a whopping 2:40 in arrears by the time the stage was over.
I complained before about having no washers, and now we've gone one worse. We've got no wipers, and it's a petty thing, but when you can't see, there's not much you can do. At times we're just driving along in second gear and, you know, virtually driving off the road, and then I'd notice we're on the edge of the road and steer back on. It was just hopeless. No good whatsoever.
Is the crew going to be able to fix that?
I'm hoping so. They're looking at it now, so we'll see what can happen.
6 left and here, 3 left plus tightens to -quarter and 3 left.
3 more forest stages remain to be decided on day 2. Stage 8, Brunswick, is a fast-flowing 16.6 kilometre stage through pine plantations, which narrows and tightens towards the end. The 9th stage is Murray River, 20.3 kilometres long and very similar to Murray Pines. Stage 10 is Marrinup, 10.4 kilometres long. It's narrow and twisting through reforested areas, finishing on fast open roads. Sensing his chances of a second Rally Australia win to complement his victory in 1994, Colin McRae stepped up the tempo in his Impreza. He won Stage 8, was second in Stage 9 and really excelled on Stage 10, shaving 2 seconds off the record set by Juha Kankinen last year. But McRae still remained the best part of a minute behind the flying Finn, Tommy Mäkinen. While Mäkinen had conceded a few seconds to McRae on Brunswick and Marrinup, he more than compensated for that with a brilliant drive on Murray River, outspeeding McRae by 5 seconds, faster than Carlos Sainz by 12 seconds.
Izquierda media en cruces de tierra y mucha salida. Barro. Acaba rápidamente, menos se abre. Para zona rápida esta cruce.
Sainz started the 3 stages only 15 seconds behind Mäkinen, but with his escort overheating and misfiring, he now found himself 36 seconds behind the Finn. Equally as critical, Sainz was only 3 seconds ahead of Kenneth Eriksson overall. He knew he must stay in front of the Swede to keep the World Championship flame flickering.
Acaba buena corte en tercera, se cierra poco. Para derecha rápida. Para izquierda acá en cruces de tierra. 1. Derecha rápido, ojo de tierra. Para 1.
Eriksson was now firmly in 3rd place, with only 39 seconds between him and Mäkinen. Back in the field, Germany's Uwe Nettel was driving his Lancer hard in a bid to take a grip on Group N. By the end of Marinup, he was a handy 31 seconds ahead of Uruguay's Gustavo Triez. With the Battle of the Bush over for another day, it was back to Langley Park for the Saturday night Superstage. 20,000 spectators had come to see if Tommy Mäkinen would top off a great day's rallying with another good performance. They were not disappointed.
Vasen 20, tosi pitkä, oikein nopea aukee. Lyhyt vaseneri plus 50 huomioon, oikein nopea tunneli kapee. Heti pitkä vasen nopea plus.
Mäkinen equaling the track record of 1:35. Mäkinen eclipsed his rivals by 1 second. Colin McRae, Kenneth Eriksson and Carlos Sainz all clocking 1:36. It wasn't all serious rally driving that night at Langley Park. Touring car stars Dick Johnson and Peter Brock thought they'd try their hand on the twin tracks. The pair had promised it would be a serious contest. The pride of Ford and Holden at stake.
Off onto the dirt. Now they're getting it sideways, round the corner. Look at the track. This is a great stuff.
So, fellas, a sensational show, but no one knew you swapped cars.
Well, that was the name of the game, see? Once you get in that tunnel, you can do all sorts of things. Well, actually, the Falcon was quite good.
I mean, next time they start talking about parity, I say, hey, I've given them both.
The reason the Falcon gets so high over the jump, you can see how much downforce it's got. It hasn't got any.
The light-hearted antics aside, this is how Rally Australia stood after day 2. Tommy Mäkinen, 37 seconds ahead of Carlos Sainz, with just 3 more seconds to Kenneth Eriksson, followed by Colin McRae and Richard Burns. Bruno Thierry was still a chance in 6th place, but then there was a 2:41 gap to Piero Liatti, with Possum-born Yoshio Fujimoto and Uwe Nettel rounding out the top 10. Tomorrow would be another day. And what a day. That story when we return. A huge setback for Sainz, who now found himself 23 seconds behind Eriksson. That became 26 seconds after Baraki, when Eriksson clocked fastest time. Eriksson, now clearly second overall, must have given himself a good chance of overhauling Mäkinen. The margin between them a not insurmountable 39 seconds. McRae, Burns and Thierry were next overall. The trio still not without a chance of victory if anything went wrong up ahead. With the weather cold and wet, and given what was about to unfold on the 4 bunning stages, it was probably better to be in the comfort of the state-of-the-art media centre in Perth.
Well, the 105 crews in Rally Australia are battling with mud and dust around Perth. The command centre, which controls their activities and that of more than 1,600 officials, is buried here in the Sheraton Ballroom. It takes up the entire ballroom space, and it's setting standards which are being taken up by rally organisers around the world. Come and have a look, and I'll show you what I mean. It could be Operation Desert Storm. Each stage is planned to computer precision. The activities of all officials logged and executed on these specially written programs. There are 4 fixed-wing aircraft up at all times. gathering information from 320 radios and 8 repeater stations. Here is the ultimate in satellite tracking. Each rally car carries a global positioning system transponder, so officials can track the vehicle through each stage. Now, if a car stops, the officials know. And if it doesn't move in 120 seconds precisely, they send in one of 5 rescue helicopters. And if the crew lifts the bonnet or opens the fuel tank, both of which are against the rules mid-stage, an alarm sounds here. More than 30,000 spectators are packing rally stages around Perth. Police, therefore, have set up a command centre here so they can help rally organisers make sure that the spectators move efficiently and easily around the course, and in the event of an accident, the police can be on it instantly. A 100-line switchboard feeds 85 computer terminals. 20 of them gather information from the field in this special room. Scoring manager Dave Manners uses others to provide comprehensive updates. The rest belong to the World Media Centre. More than 600 international and Australian journalists are here for the rally. So who's the genius who designed all this? Let's meet him now. Peter, rate this against any other rally support system in the world today.
Rally Australia is one of the top rallies in the world. In 1995 it won the Best Event Award from the Manufacturers Association. So it rates, you know, very much #1 in the world in terms of rallying and in terms of other major sporting events.
But the sports system that you've put behind it, how good is that?
Obviously, I'm biased because it's my system, but a lot of other of the events are very interested in using it, and a lot of the innovations come from Rally Australia. We've worked together to develop it, to make it probably the leading system throughout the World Championship.
What have you tried to achieve?
Basically, a system any system's got to work. It's got to be easy to use. It's got to do the job and provide the information to the literally hundreds of media that are visiting Australia for the event, but at the same time present it in a way that's easily understandable.
It's all the media though, isn't it? It's management of the entire event.
Yeah, basically what you've got here is like a major corporation that sets up operations for 10 days and then goes away. The computer system that we've got set up here would quite easily run a big company, a big national company.
That's nice when the system's working, but what happens when a car goes on its roof? How does the system then handle an accident, a trauma?
Basically what we have to do to prepare for situations like that, we have to have all the information readily available, to deal with the situation, but also the system has to warn us and tell us that something has happened, something is going wrong.
Compare this to Formula One. Formula One runs on a motor racing track, this thing runs in forest. How difficult is this?
Well, basically, if you think about it, Formula One is very nice. You've got everything within a few kilometre radius. Literally, Rally Australia covers hundreds and thousands of square kilometres. And what we have to do the same job as Formula One, except over a much, much wider area. And obviously, the problems that creates are just enormous.
Why do you do it?
Why does anybody do it? It's just a fantastic sport to be involved with. It's particularly Australia. I always love coming to Australia, the people down here, the pioneer spirit, just the can-do attitude that you Australians have.
With the waterlogged Bunnings stages to come, the crews were about to go through an experience they would never forget. Bunnings North is a 30.6 kilometre stage through pine plantations, with the feature being a spectacular finish through a creek. This year, there was twice the normal amount of water in the creek, and it was simply too much for most of the drivers. Rally leader Tommy Mackinnon, who'd been first to hit the water, did manage to force his way through. The only other driver to make it across unassisted to the other side of the water was Colin McRae. The scoreboard told the sorry tale. Only Mackinnon and McRae surviving the dunking. Among those to get a soaking, Carlos Sainz.
The car is okay after the water splash this morning and the water it ingested?
Yeah, everything is okay. It's not very good for the engine to drink some water, but it's okay.
Is the power down?
Oh, 4 engines are very strong.
Ericsson, the Bunnings Creek led to a major scare.
But we have a big fire in the car here. It's burning here inside, you see.
You had a fire in the car?
Yeah. For the last couple of stages, we had to fix it now. I think it was too much water because we were in the river before, so something is shorted here.
So have you had any problems with the engine, just the fire?
Just the fire is big problem enough, I tell you. Hard to see out.
By contrast, Richard Burns' Lancer appeared to come through the ordeal with no ill effects.
I think the engine seems okay. It may have reduced its power a little bit, but I mean, if it has, it's very, very small amount. It's nearly perfect still.
So the performance is not sort of off song too much?
No, I think it's still pretty good.
Organisers had no alternative but to abandon Bunnings North. Stage 17, Bunnings South, suffered the same fate, while those in between, Bunnings West and Bunnings East, were shortened. Normally 31.4 kilometres long through pine plantations, Bunnings West lost 1 kilometre at the start. Bunnings East was also pruned by almost a kilometre to avoid another fiasco at the same water splash, leaving just over 14 kilometres to negotiate. Rather than be upset by the situation, Tommy Mackinnon turned it to his advantage, not only setting fastest time on both stages, but effectively blowing away his rivals in the process. He was an amazing 23 seconds quicker than second fastest McRae on Bunnings West, while his margin over his nearest rival on Bunnings East, Carlos Sainz, was a comfortable 6 seconds.
So far, so good. No problem.
Just hanging in there, very slippery?
Some places, but not so slippery. Quite general grip, actually. Just a few places which are more muddy are very slippy, but mainly quite general grip. Okay, it's slippery, but easier to drive if it's general.
Colin McRae had done well on stage 15, but undid that good work with a mishap on the next stage.
Okay. 7-3 jump maybe, and 3 right opens over crest.
We slid into the bushes a bit and had to reverse back out again.
How's the car performing? You have any problems after going through the water this morning?
We stopped in the water, but after that it went okay again, no problem.
What about this stage specifically? Slippery, what are the conditions like?
Very inconsistent now. You know, for a few k's you have very good grip and then all of a sudden you lose it in some mud. It's very difficult.
While some of those around him were losing their heads, Possum Bourne was keeping his. 7th fastest on Bunnings West and 1 better on Bunnings East saw him penciling in the 300 Australian Rally Championship points available for the first home in that division.
We've got a good lead on Neil and the others, so we're just trying to keep it careful, be sensible. Made a little bit of a balls up on one corner, but generally it went okay. It's really slippery and the conditions are quite trying. If you go too slow, you can't get the car to work, and if you go too fast, you hit something. So it's really tricky.
The ARC situation was becoming crystal clear. But not so Group N, where only 5 seconds separated the Lancers of Uwe Nettel and Gustavo Triez. Ed Ordinsky was 2.5 minutes behind Nettel, resigned to the fact his rally was effectively over.
I did a tyre or something in the back suspension just then, so it's not my event, this one, I don't think. You know, it's been making a good comeback, but wet ignition for 4 kilometres the last stage, and the one before that, so no, sometimes you're just not destined to get back.
After Bunnings, the rally field contested stage 18, toss, before returning for the third Langley Park Superstage. Rubbing salt into the wound, Mackinnon outsped his rivals along toss and then set fastest time at Langley Park, which by this time had lost all traction thanks to the weather, leading to record slow times. Langley Park had seen the fastest drivers in the world. It was also the setting for those who were not quite as slippery. The field entered in the Celebrity Challenge. Channel 10 trio, Toddy Goldsmith, Tracy Spicer and Melissa Hannon, took on stars of other sports, including Olympic cyclist Darren Hill, hockey gold medalist Jackie Pereira, and Fremantle Dockers footballer Scott Watters. In the end, Darren Hill showed the transition from 2 to 4 wheels wasn't too hard, outperforming equal second place getters Scott Watters and surprise packet Melissa Hannon. With only 8 stages remaining, Mackinnon had Rally Australia by the throat, leading Ericsson by 1 minute 22 seconds, with another 31 seconds back to Sainz, followed by McRae and Burns. Thierry held 6th overall, from Liati, Bourne, Nettel and Triez. How the final day panned out in just a moment. The fourth and final day dawned overcast and cloudy, but at least the worst of the rain was gone. The opening and closing stages of the day, Helena 1 and 2, 35 kilometres east of Perth, are 30 kilometres long, featuring open sections of clay over gravel interspersed with sandy deviations around pine plantations. With a commanding lead, Tommy Mackinnon would have been excused for easing back the throttle, but the opposite was the case on Helena 1. The Finn careered along the stage 5 seconds faster than Carlos Sainz and Bruno Thierry, with Kenneth Eriksson a further second away in 4th place. Stage 21, Atkins, is only 4.4 kilometres long and a real challenge in the wet. Bruno Thierry proved the master of the conditions in his escort, eclipsing Eriksson and Sainz by 2 seconds, with Mackinnon another second away in 4th place. In Group N, Gustavo Triez was making a desperate bid to rein in Uwe Nettel, recording a time 7 seconds faster than the German. The margin between the pair was now just 2 seconds. Stage 22, Well Bucket, starts on very fast open gravel, then narrows onto old farm tracks on the way to a pine plantation. Well Bucket is such an environmentally sensitive area that only the competitors' vehicles are allowed in, and even they have to be sprayed before they enter the dieback disease control area. Well Bucket was the start of an amazing charge by Carlos Sainz. The Spaniard was 30 seconds behind Kenneth Eriksson in the battle for second place, behind Tommy Mackinnon. With Mackinnon assured of victory, Sainz had to finish ahead of Eriksson to keep him within mathematical distance of the Finn for the world title. Sainz was 5 seconds faster than Eriksson on Well Bucket and picked up another second on the drastically shortened York Railway stage. Coming to the 2 Muresk stages, Sainz had narrowed the gap behind Eriksson to 24 seconds. Muresk 1 and 2 are fast and open, almost 7 kilometres long, consisting of gravel over clay, plus half a kilometre of bitumen. Sainz had gained momentum, and there was no stopping him. He shaved a second off Eriksson's margin on Muresk 1, and 2 seconds on Muresk 2, now just 21 seconds separating the pair, and Eriksson developing an oil leak, of which he was unaware until informed by Channel 10's John Thompson.
Kenneth, you appear to have an oil leak.
Well,
not under the car. little bit of drama in the closing stages of the rally, with Kenneth Eriksson suffering a problem to his rear drivetrain. Here on the road, you can see some oil from Kenneth Eriksson's car.
30 hyppyä eri plus, 40 hyppyä eri plus.
While Sainz and Eriksson were staging their personal war for second and third, Tommy Mäkinen was humming along, knowing only a disaster could rob him of victory. With 2 stages to go, his lead was still almost a minute and a half. The second last stage, Mount Observation, is 11.7 kilometres long, a fast and open sand and gravel surface through natural forest along farm fence lines. Again, Carlos Sainz took fastest time, shaving another 6 seconds from Eriksson. 1 stage to go. 15 seconds off second place and a chance to stay in the World Championship. Carlos would not be sparing the horses.
Keep trying all the time. Okay, there's a long stage coming up. Kenneth has a bit of a problem with his car. You're confident you can get past him now?
What's his problem?
He has a split rear diff and is leaking still a little.
We will see.
But you're sure as hell going to try?
Of course we will try.
Rob, can you give me the times, please, on the stage?
Yes.
Leading in the Asia Pacific Championship, which he won last year, Eriksson was keen to cling to second place in Rally Australia. His sump patched up for the final stage.
Okay, what's the situation with the diff? Are you confident it will last through Helena?
Yeah, we put some glue on it, but it's leaking a little bit, so I think it will be okay. It's not noised yet, so I think it will be okay.
Eriksson's problems paled into insignificance compared with the glitches developed by Bruno Thierry's Escort.
Misfire. Run here. I try to continue like that.
The car won't go.
No.
Bruno, this misfire is getting worse. Are you going to be able to make it to the next stage?
Yeah, I don't know. It's worse at the stage before.
Unlike the rivals he'd driven into the West Australian dirt, Tommy Mäkinen and his Lancer were still in top shape, and nothing could deny him victory.
You're confident you're going to be world champion at the end of the next stage?
Still one more stage to do, but I feel very confident. Car is in perfect condition and it goes like itself.
The last stage of Rally Australia, Helena 2, was a cakewalk for Tommy Mäkinen. Content with equal 4th fastest time, Mäkinen cruised to the line a winner by more than a minute and a quarter. The World Rally Championship in the bag, with 2 more events still to be decided.
Well done, well done.
It's unbelievable, incredible feeling. Perhaps I don't understand quite yet, maybe a bit later.
Did you believe at the start of 1996 that you could win the World Championship?
So, of course, we knew that our car is very competitive and very reliable, and of course we knew that we have a chance to win, but I couldn't suppose that we can clear it up so early.
The battle for second turned into an epic. Eriksson eventually hanging on by a mere 4 seconds.
I'm so happy to finish second, and because of that I'm also winning Asia Pacific Championship again this year, so I'm really happy.
So this has clinched the Asia Pacific for you?
Yeah.
Carlos Sainz promised to pull out all stops on day 4, and he was as good as his word. The Spaniard took fastest time on the stage by 8 seconds from Richard Burns. Sainz was 11 seconds quicker than Eriksson, but his valiant bid to overhaul the Swede just failed, even though he'd won the last 6 stages of the rally.
It was really exciting at the end. We tried hard, but we were missing a little bit more. These 4 seconds, maybe 1 stage more, I don't know.
4th overall was the 1994 Rally Australia champion, Colin McRae. In his debut Rally Australia, Italian Piero Liatti steered his Subaru Impreza into 7th place, a good effort in anyone's language. The struggle in Group N had been an epic one. Uruguay's Gustavo Triez shaded Germany's Uwe Nettel by 7 seconds, going into Helena 2, but took it too hard and left the road. It was a disaster, taking 20 minutes to get the car back on the track. That appeared to hand Group N to Nittel, with Ordinsky almost 5 minutes back in second place. But the drama was not over, even after the event had run its course. Nittel was disqualified after his Lancer was found to have an oversized engine. Amazingly, Ordinsky retained his mortgage on Group N. 7 victories from 8 starts in that group, and a spot in the top 10 overall. Top points in the Australian Rally Championship were taken comprehensively by New Zealand's Possum Bourne, who drove a clever event. Newcastle's Michael Guest gave further proof of his enormous potential by recovering from a rollover to finish the rally in 19th place. Mackinnon had 1 minute 27 to spare from Kenneth Eriksson, who just held off a fast-finishing Carlos Sainz. Colin McRae was 4th, just shading fellow British driver Richard Burns. Bruno Thierry of Belgium came in 6th, ahead of Italian Piero Liatti, Possum Bourne of New Zealand, Japan's Yoshio Fujimoto, and the leading Australian, Ed Ordinsky.
And the champagne flies.
103 cars had started Rally Australia. Only 53 made it to the finish. And all had to lower their colours to the new World Rally Champion, Tommy Mackinnon of Finland.
And there we are, the first 3 crews in Rally Australia 1996.